All right, well, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. We are having the first of two programs on fermentation, and this one is funky cabbage, sauerkraut, and kimchi. Let's see if we can get through some logistics here. Okay, it would be nice to be able to advance. There we go. Hi, I'm Marina Shea. I'll be your MC this evening. Bear with me. Our Q&A monitor is Henry Shaw, and we'll talk a little bit about putting things into the Q&A throughout the program. And our MFP presenters today, our master food preservers, are Monica Benavides and Nina Hoyman. Note, as you may have seen on your screen already, this program is being recorded. Recorded program will be posted on our website, so you can always go back and refer to that. We will also send you this slide deck after you complete the brief post-program survey that you'll receive when the Zoom ends. And so don't feel like you have to take a bunch of notes. We sent out the two recipes that are involved in advance, and we'll also post that in the chat as well. So you'll have plenty of things to refer to and can just listen for the program today. I'm just advancing. There we go. All right, our housekeeping, the usual Zoom, please keep your mics muted when you're not speaking. And then when we invite live Q&A, you can just unmute and speak right up, or if you want, you can raise your Zoom hand. But we will certainly try to get to all questions. Now, we're going to use the Q&A feature all the way through the Zoom meeting. So at any time, you can submit questions or comments just by typing into the Zoom Q&A feature. If you're using a laptop, you probably have a full Zoom menu bar, and you'll just see a little Q&A right there, and that's what you use. If you don't see Q&A on your menu bar, like if you're working on a phone or have limited space on your bar, it's probably under the three dots that says More. And if you just click on that, then you will discover that there'll be in the menu a Q&A option. You select that from the pop-up menu, and then that gives you a field to type in. And you can please put any comments or questions there throughout the program. We'll sometimes be able to read them out loud when it is relevant, or we will try our best to get to all of them in writing or orally. And then, of course, during the open Q&A, please feel free to speak up, and you can even turn on your video so we can say hi. So the UC Master Food Preserver Online Program, who are we? We are a community outreach, online-based, grant-funded volunteer program within the University of California Division of Agricultural and Natural Resources that provides up-to-date research-based information on food safety and preservation, trying to find ways to keep you safe. Our mission is to keep Californians and, of course, the general public safe and well as they use culturally appropriate, research-based practices to safely preserve food in the home, reducing food waste, increasing food security, and providing engaging ways for Californians to explore healthy food. Now, I'm not going to read you this whole legalese disclaimer for the University of California. I just want to emphasize that we are all volunteers. We do not speak for the University of California. In particular, we are not endorsing or opposing any specific product or organization or service. So, for example, if you see a photo in one of our demonstrations, or we're using some specific equipment, it is not a particular brand that is being endorsed. It's just a method that we're showing you. All right, let's get to today's program. Our goal today is to prepare you to select appropriate equipment for making fermented foods, and Monica is going to go over that. And then she'll roll right into our second goal, which is to prepare you to safely make sauerkraut at home. And then our final goal is to safely make kimchi at home. And Nina Hoyman is going to lead us in that. So with that, we'll move to our first goal, selecting appropriate equipment for making fermented foods. And Monica, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to start with our equipment. We're going to go over utensils and cookware. You're going to want to use unchipped enamelware, stainless steel, or glass to heat acid pickling liquids. Spoons should be stainless steel, wool, or plastic. Do not use aluminum, copper, brass, galvanized, or iron utensils, as these metals may react with acids or salts and cause undesirable color or flavor changes. Next slide. Moving on to crocks, containers that are porous, have cracks or chips, can be lined with heavy food grade plastic. Lead and other toxic metals could be in the glaze of old and possibly new crocks. Acid produced in fermentation could cause these contaminants to leach into food. So be sure to check before using an old crock or even purchasing a new crock. Next slide. Other suitable containers are large glass bowls, wide mouth canning jars, as you see here in the photo. Large enamel containers must be free of chips that expose the metal. Gallon glass jars and food grade plastic pails will work as well. Next slide, please. Okay, on to weights. So vegetables must be covered with 1 to 2 inches of brine. We'll talk about brine more later during the fermentation process. So some options to weigh that product down are a heavy plate, a glass pie plate, or large glass lid that fit just inside the top of the crock or container that you're using and covers the fermenting food. You could add a sealed jar with water or doubled up food grade bags filled with brine to weigh down the plate or other weight that you're using to push down that food under the brine. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's talk about the container opening cover. Use a clean, heavy towel or coffee filter, like the one pictured in this photo, to prevent contamination from insects and mold while vegetables are fermenting. A thermometer is also useful for monitoring the temperature of the room where the fermentation is taking place. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Next slide. Okay, we're going to move on to our second goal for this evening, safely making sauerkraut at home. Next slide, please. Sauerkraut is naturally fermented cabbage. Salt is vital when making sauerkraut safely. It allows for desirable bacteria to grow while inhibiting the growth of others. Do not attempt to make sauerkraut by cutting back on salt required. For best results, when making sauerkraut, use firm heads of fresh cabbage. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to go over the ingredients and supplies here. You want to use, again, fresh cabbage and salt. Pickling, canning salt is okay, not anti-caking salt, as anti-caking ingredients can make your brine cloudy, and water. Supplies that you'll need are a cutting board, a knife, a scale, a large bowl, large jar, or other container that you'll be doing your fermenting in. Measuring spoons and a tamper to push down your cabbage is optional, helpful. Oh, and the thermometer, as mentioned earlier, can be helpful. Next slide, please. Okay, so onto the brine I'd mentioned, that's essentially your salt water. So we're going to go over how to make it, but a tip here is to prepare extra um, brine before processing the cabbage. This will give it time to cool before adding it to your prepared cabbage. Next slide, please. To make the brine, you're going to boil 1 quart of water and dissolve 1.5 tablespoons of salt. Oh, again, you're going to want to use pickling or canning salt, not the kosher ionized salt here. Sorry, before this gets sent out to you, that will be edited. And not caking, again, that will cloud your brine. And then allow that to cool. Next slide, please. Oh, we'll make note of that slide there before we send that out to you all. Okay, so preparing the cabbage. Step 1, you're going to remove the outer leaves. And step 2, rinse the head under cool running water. Next slide, please. You can save the outer leaves, just a little tip here, to help keep the shredded cabbage down in the brine during the fermentation process. And this will be shown later on slide 32. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Step 3, we're going to cut the head into quarters as shown in the photos. Next slide. You're going to cut out the core and shred or slice to a thickness of a quarter. So it's pretty thin. Next slide. All right, step 6, you're going to prepare the scale by zeroing it out with a bowl, and then you're going to weigh out your cabbage, and we'll go over the proportions of cabbage to salt. Next slide. Okay, so you're going to add the correct ratio of salt and mix thoroughly with clean hands. So here I'm using the 2 pounds of cabbage to 4 teaspoons of salt, which will yield about 1 quart, sorry. But you can use these ratios if you'd like to make more. Next slide, please. All right, so continuing with our salting the cabbage, step 8, we're going to continue to massage the salt into the cabbage until the juices are released from the cabbage. So a little tip here is you can use food-safe gloves if your hands are sensitive to the salt. And in the photos, you can tell that the the cabbage is going to darken as you're massaging that salt in. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to begin packing our cabbage. There, it's kind of dark. Okay, next slide. Okay, and step 10, continue to pack firmly to extract those juices. Leave 4 to 5 inches of headspace again. Little tip, you can use a tamper. You can use the tamper for your blender. I'm using a ice cream scoop. You can use your fist and just squeeze all that juice out there. Um, and you can see in the second photo here that the juice really came out when I pushed down that cabbage. Next slide, please. Okay, so step 11, if juice does not cover the cabbage, that 1 to 2 inches, you can add that cooled extra brine that you had prepared ahead of time. Step 12, use your whey or cleaned outer cabbage leaf. You can see in the picture here to submerge the cabbage, and then we have an aerial view of the jar with that cleaned large outer leaf submerging the cabbage pieces. Next slide, please. And step 13 is use an additional weight to keep the plate or the cabbage leaf submerged. Next slide. I'm sorry. In that previous slide, there was that jar that I had mentioned earlier on your options of weights. But again, you could use a double bagged, a food safe bag full of brine to as a weight to keep that plate or that cabbage leaf down. Okay, next slide. Thank you. And then you prepare to wait. So step 14 is you're going to label your container with the product and the date. You're going to cover the container with a towel or a coffee filter. You'll notice here that a little tip is I use a double rubber band because in the past I've used a single rubber band and it's opened up and my cover came loose. So I've learned to put a double rubber band just in case one of them's not so secure. Okay, then you're going to store um, this at 70 to 75 degrees. It will take 3 to 4 weeks to fully ferment. Next slide, please. Okay, so what to expect as the cabbage ferments? Bubbles will form in the fermentation process. Pardon me. Getting over a cold. Okay, so and an odor is also natural. So in addition to that bubbling, your it can have an odor, and that's just part of the natural fermentation process. If you find that scum forms on on the top of the brine, simply remove it and continue the fermentation process. Now, what if you find mold? Well, small amounts of mold may be skimmed off. that it won't survive down into the brine, but large amounts will affect the flavor and may affect the safety. So kraut should be discarded if you do find large amounts of mold. Next slide, please. So your fully fermented kraut, when the bubbling ceases, may be kept tightly covered in the fridge for several months, or it may be canned. And you can see the recipe that you'll be provided for those canning instructions. Next slide. Okay, so now we would like to open it up. Feel free to turn on your mic. Feel free to raise your hand. You can leave a question in the Q&A, and or you can just unmute and ask a question. What questions do you have? No
Nothing
question.
in Q&A yet.
Say that again, Henry.
Nothing in Q&A yet. No
Oh,
questions in
I just answered all your questions.
No, I have a question. I have a
Okay,
question.
great.
How do you can it after it's fermented for after the bubbles stop? How do you can it from there?
That's a great question. So in your recipe, you're going to have instructions on how to use a hot pack method or a raw pack method. And it will give you instructions. You know, you bring it to a boil in a large kettle, stirring frequently for the hot pack, remove from heat, fill jars. Rather firmly with the kraut and the juices, leaving a half-inch headspace, and then you'll process them according to your the style pack and the elevation, if you're using pints or quarts. So that will be provided to you. Great question. What other questions do you
With
have?
raw pack,
We have,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead,
go ahead, was
Marlene.
that Marlene?
Yeah,
Marlene?
raw pack when you're packing it raw.
Yes, it says fill jars firmly with kraut and cover with juices, leaving half-inch headspace. So you won't be heating it up
Okay.
in that instance. And then you'll have a different time duration for processing your jars.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We have several questions in the Q&A. First is it necessary to bring the brine to a boil, then cool down, or you can just make a brine at room temperature?
Oh, that's an excellent question. You want your salt to fully dissolve, your pickling or canning salt to fully dissolve. So if it's fully dissolved, let's see, do my teammates have an answer with that? I would imagine it's not necessary if your salt is fully dissolved and thoroughly mixed in.
That should be fine.
Yeah, it should be fine, right? Thanks, Henry.
Another question, could you please explain the salt with caking, and et cetera? Can I use
Yes.
any salt? So let's talk a little more about salt.
Oh, great question. So no, we can't use any salt. So we'll use canning or pickling salt. And the anti-caking is an ingredient that's added to some salts. And what that can do is it can make your brine cloudy. So you're not going to want to use that. You're going to want to use the canning or pickling salt. Um, is there, let's see, Henry, Marina, or Nina, would anyone else like to weigh in on the salt?
You want to use something that is just salt. You look at the list of ingredients, it shouldn't have anything you don't recognize. It shouldn't have any maltodextrin in it. It shouldn't have cornstarch in it. You shouldn't have anti-caking agents. It just should say salt.
Marina's got an example there.
And the other, yeah, sometimes that's the canning and pickling salt.
Yep, ingredient salt.
Can you just use
The other thing to worry about is the recipes are usually given in terms of the salt is measured in terms of volume, so many tablespoons per pounds of cabbage. Different salts have different textures. So coarsely crystalline kosher salt has a bulk density. It doesn't pack as much as regular table salt or canning salt. So you can't just use a tablespoon of kosher salt and assume it has the same amount of salt in it as a tablespoon of canning salt. So the recipes specifically say canning salt.
In addition,
What else? You don't want to
iodine,
use rock salt yet. Iodine,
it
people
says it
used to
can
say to
darken.
avoid it, but can darken it. People used to think that iodized salt, because iodine is a disinfectant, would impede the microbial growth in our fermented products. The latest papers, research papers, show that that's not true. So that iodine actually doesn't affect the microbiology of these ferments, but it can give an off flavor or an odd color.
How about sea salt or Himalayan pink salt?
I wouldn't use Himalayan pink salt. It's got iron in it. That's why it's pink. It'll probably give you an odd color or flavor. Sea salt should be okay, as long as there are no additives to it. We have a jar of fancy sea salt up here, but it's full of anti-caking agents. So you really have to read the label.
In addition, some sea salts have quite a lot of minerals, and that can also make it a little cloudy.
Yeah.
So it's the key thing with the salt, I think, is that different salts have different weights per volume. And so the amount of salt that you get in there varies. That's why the standard recommendation for this recipe is canning and pickling salt.
If you have a kitchen scale, you can use it. Instead of measuring by volume, you can use any pure salt if you weigh it. So the general rule is between 2 and 2.5% of the weight of the cabbage that you have. You want to add 2.5 to 2% that weight in terms of salt. So if you had
that does require some calculations that we're probably not going to give examples of tonight, though.
But if you can calculate percentages, you can do by weight. And that's actually a better way to do it. Unfortunately, the recipes don't do it that way. And most people don't have kitchen scales. So we have a bunch of other questions.
And I see Inez's hand up. Oh.
Yeah, we'll do a live one.
So my question is regarding the increase of temperature. If it's above 75 degrees, what do you recommend that we do to bring the temperature down, like in the summer?
Mm.
That's a good question.
It's always hard. Go ahead, Monica.
Oh, I was just going to say your recipe does address the temperature in a bit more detail. So if it says it's above 75 degrees, your kraut may become soft. So it won't have as much of a crispness. In terms of how to keep it cool, I think finding, being mindful of finding a cool spot in your home where you can keep an eye on it. You don't want to forget about it. I think that would be helpful, and then in addition to regulating the temperature of your home, taking measures to regulate the temperature of your home. But it does also address if it's cooler. So I don't know if anyone was wondering, well, what if I have in a cooler environment? It will take longer. So for example, at 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, fermentation may take 5 to 6 weeks. So anyone else want to add in?
I would contribute that, cabbage is a cool season vegetable. So this is actually a great month to be making cabbage. And even those of us who are inland don't have to worry so much about the 100-degree days, which is just not going to work. I mean, it's it's really tricky to try to keep it at the right temperature if you have a hot house. Yeah.
So it's best not to even consider making it over 75 degrees. If the temperature is over 75 degrees, then you're kind of over for the season.
Well, yes, generally. But, of course, you could try to modulate the environment that you're fermenting it in, or you could put it in the refrigerator and take a really long time.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, I would suggest doing it when the temperature is more temperate.
That's what I was going to suggest. And you can try canning it and saving it and preserving it for those times that it is hot and you don't have the ideal environment for the fermentation process.
We do have a question on canning. Does canning affect the probiotic benefits of fermented kraut?
Marina, would you like to share? Sorry, nodding.
I'm going to say yes. I mean, you're going to have to be heating it up in order for the canning process to it's going to kill the critters to make it safe for shelf stable storage, and it's going to kill a bunch of the other critters that you want along the way.
It'll taste good, but
Yeah, still tastes good on a hot dog, but won't have all of the.
And then two other related ones here. How do you tell if it's scum or mold? And from another person, sometimes I get a bit of pink stuff on top. Is this mold?
The difference between scum and mold, let's see.
The scum is usually what's called culm yeast, Kalm yeast. It's a yeast that grows at the surface where it's exposed to oxygen. That's harmless, but it does give an off flavor. So you want to scrape that off if you see it forming. Anything pink is probably not good.
Oh, if in our in the fundamentals, it does say pink kraut is safe to eat. Natural pigments in cabbage enhanced by dry growing conditions. The prevention is none. Another possible cause is yeast growth on surface caused by too much salt, uneven distribution of salt, or if kraut is improperly covered or weighted during fermentation. And the prevention for that is to use correct amounts of salt, 2.25% to 2.5%, as Henry was mentioning earlier, of cabbage weight mixed in well, and keep fermentation between 70 and 75 degrees. There's that temperature, ideal temperature range again.
And then when in doubt, throw it out.
When in doubt, throw it out. Yeah.
And there's another expression, which is submerge in brine and all will be fine. So that's why the fermentation is occurring in the absence of oxygen under that cabbage leaf and the weight. So that's the part we want to have happening. We don't want to have any of our ingredients sticking out of into the air. Right.
These are all fantastic.
Can you use any kind of cabbage? The preferred variety, and can you substitute other vegetables in this recipe for cabbage?
No, cannot substitute.
But
This
you can
is a
use
recipe
pretty much
for
any variety.
cabbage only.
But you can use different varieties of cabbage.
Thank you so much for all those wonderful questions. I'm going to go ahead and if we
still
Henry.
Yeah, so
we'll try and answer them at the end if we have time, and I
Right.
can answer them online.
We'll do
Sounds
what
great.
we can.
Thank you so much.
Well, we should have some more time for a few general questions at the end, or we'll do what we can with the written Q&A. Thanks, everyone. Let's head back for our third goal, and that is to safely make kimchi at home. Nina?
Hey, Henry has put in the chat a PDF of the recipe that we are using for making kimchi. And this recipe was provided by Hyo Jung Kang to the Colorado State University Extension. So this is from the Colorado State University Extension website. Okay, next slide. So the cabbage that's round, the green ones and the purple ones, is not what we're using for this kimchi recipe. We are using Napa cabbage, and that is the more pale and elongated one that you can see on the right with the orange arrow. It has a little bit of a milder flavor that will take up the seasonings. And Henry is posting the link to the kimchi recipe in the chat, but you also should be receiving it as an email this evening. Next slide, please. And like Monica said, the fresher the cabbage, the better. It's going to release more juices. It's going to release more water. And in this case, it'll allow the cabbage to take up more seasonings. So let's prepare the cabbage. There's going to be a couple of different steps. First, we're going to rinse and core it like Monica showed with the round cabbages, and you're going to, but we don't have to cut it quite as small. We're going to cut it into 2-inch pieces. So we've chopped it up. That's step 2. step 3 of the cabbage preparation is salting it with, again, the pure salt. No additional ingredients like anti-caking agents or even iodized salt. And then for the next step, we're going to, for the salting step, actually, step 3, we're going to do it in a couple of stages according to this recipe that we have. As an initial step, we're going to first quickly dip the cabbage in salted cold water and have it drained. But then the main salting part is going to be a longer process of adding a larger amount of salt to the cabbage in a bowl and massaging it really well and allowing it to sit for several hours. So that's the main part of salting the cabbage. And the purpose of salting the cabbage is to draw the water out of the cabbage again, so it will take up the seasonings. Now, of course, we've put a lot of salt on it. So in step 4, we want to rinse our cabbage very well. There you can see it in the colander. And then we want to drain it very well, like for about a half an hour. And these steps are elaborated in the recipe. So I'm just giving you the overall method here. So for our next step, we're going to prepare the seasonings. And we're going to be using Korean red chili pepper powder. And it is strongly suggested that you use food handler gloves for the handling of the red pepper powder and the red pepper paste you're going to make from the powder. It could be extremely irritating. Okay, so let's take a look at our additional ingredients that are going to be used in the seasoning. In the top of the picture, you can see a bag of the Korean red chili pepper powder, and that's going to be mixed into a paste of sweet rice flour and a little bit of water that you've heated up. So in the bowl is the prepared red chili pepper powder paste with the rice flour and a bit of water. Then in the 2 middle bowls are daikon radish that's been cut into matchstick size pieces. And in the bottom bowl are the green onions, the fresh ginger, and the fresh garlic. And again, the amounts are in the recipe that you will be receiving. This is the overall method. So those are our seasoning ingredients. There's also optional fish sauce, optional Asian pear, and optional additional salt if you feel that's needed. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here we have made it's a little more of a close-up view of the Korean red chili powder pepper paste. Again, we're using hot water. We're mixing some sweet rice flour into it. You let that cool a little bit, then you're going to blend in your Korean red chili pepper powder. You don't need to do this step with gloves with your hands, but I would use the gloves anyway, even just scooping it out of the bag. Okay, next slide, please. Now we're combining the red chili pepper paste with our ingredients that we saw in the other bowls, the radish, daikon radish, the green onion, the garlic, and the ginger. And we're going to mix that all up. Next slide. Okay, here it is. Here's our seasoning ingredients all mixed up. So next slide. And now we're going to combine it with the salted and drained cabbage. And this is a part that's kind of fun to do with your hands once you've got your gloves on, and you're, just mixing away there. Okay, next slide. So now we're going to pack the kimchi tightly into jars. And again, the tight packing down is going to promote the release of water from the cabbage and create some brine that'll cover the kimchi. We're not going to make any additional brine to put in there. We're just going to, that's one reason for using the very fresh cabbage, because it will exude more water for the brine. And we want to exclude air because that will allow fermentation to occur, which releases bubbles. So that's why we want to only fill our fermentation jars, say 2/3 full at the most, because that will allow space for the bubbling process. So here I've used a quart jar for fermentation. So then we're going to cover the jars and place them on a plate or in a bowl in case there's overflow. The kimchi can be fermented for 1 to 2 days at room temperature in this recipe, especially if the weather's not too hot. If it's hot weather, it can be fermented in the refrigerator instead. Now, and I go ahead to the next slide. And now the finished kimchi, which has completed its room temperature fermentation, is transferred to a smaller jar. Here it's in a pint jar for storage, and you label it with a date and apply a lid. And so then we're going to store the kimchi in the refrigerator. Next slide. And here it is in the refrigerator. You want to press the solids down so underneath the liquids so they don't stick out and get moldy. And if mold appears, you want to discard the kimchi. So I know it's a popular condiment. I thought people might enjoy this recipe because there's not too many fermentation recipes out there that are research-based or have been vetted by university folks. So hope you enjoy the kimchi. Any questions?
Can you use mochi rice flour?
That's a good question. I am sorry, I do not know the difference between that and sweet rice flour. Is it the same thing? Does
Same
anybody
thing.
else know the answer to that?
Basically the same thing.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And is it necessary? I mean, can you skip the flour, or do you have to put it
No,
in?
you have to put the flour in there because that's
It's science based.
this recipe is vetted by a university extension, so we follow the recipe that they've got. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so here's my labeled jar. Here's how the red pepper powder came. I've got it all bundled up, but do remember to use your gloves if you are working with that. Any other questions?
I see a question from Christine.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Christine. Where do you get the red pepper powder?
Yeah, I went to an Asian market to buy it. And the sweet rice flour you could also find there. They, in my experience, their produce was very fresh for the daikon radish and the Napa cabbage. And so it worked great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great
We have a
class.
couple of questions in Q&A. How long can you safely store it in the refrigerator?
This is a great question. And our groups have had some discussions about this. This recipe says use it within, I think it says use it. It can be, one of these recipes said you could use it for a couple of weeks, but everybody that I know has been able to keep it for a very long time.
Months.
Months, yeah, exactly. So anecdotally, that's been everybody's experience. This particular recipe, I can't find it right now where it says that, but that is the only thing that's unclear about this recipe. So is exactly how long it keeps.
If it gets moldy, if you see obvious signs of mold or deterioration in it, then you want to throw it out.
Right, yeah, and it's going to keep better if you keep the
It's
vegetables
cold.
submerged.
A couple of things on the chili. Can you use a substitution for the Korean chili powder? And somebody else asked, on the powder, it appears that this powder is powered by red chili peppers. Is this correct? If it is, could one make their own by pureeing red chili peppers?
Well, this is a great question. and I thank you for it. My understanding, so this particular recipe comes from a Korean tradition. So the Korean red chili pepper powder is the one that they recommend. And that is, in fact, what this one is. There are kimchi traditions from other Asian countries that might have different ingredients, but they are not on our approved list of recipes. So in this recipe, there are no substitutes for the Korean red chili pepper powder.
I would
Also,
add
it
it
will-
also is going to make it not taste the way that you know, that you think of kimchi tasting.
Yeah.
And then to make it less spicy, do you add less red pepper powder? I will answer, I will note that there are different spicinesses of Korean chili powder. So you can actually buy hotter ones and milder ones. So that's another way to get around that.
Yeah. My understanding with chili, with peppers in general, is we cannot change the amount of peppers. I know that's true with fresh peppers. I guess I would go the same route and say, no, I would not make any changes to the recipe. You know, fermentation is such an inexact process anyway, that if somebody has come up with an approved recipe, I would not change the ingredients or the proportions. Anybody else have a comment on that, though?
All right, I'm going to jump in here, just watching the time. We only have a few minutes and I want to just cover a few sort of program things. But if people have additional questions in the Q&A, we can try to stay on and see if we can get to those as well. So if you'll I just wanted to point out that this was the first of 2 different fermentation programs. The online program is running quite a few programs, and they're all free. This coming Sunday, we have a canning basics program that's high acid canning, things like, you know, your jams and higher acid foods, tomatoes. And that is this coming Sunday afternoon. And this specific QR code should get you to the registration page for that. And then this coming Wednesday, not even a week from now, we have our monthly program, which is an open-ended Ask a UCMFP program, which is an hour of just open questions for any issues that have to do with food preservation. We'll try to answer. If we can't, we'll try to figure out how to get you an answer. And that is the first Wednesday of every month from 7 to 8 p.m. The general QR code on the right is for getting to the UCANR events page, and additional things are being added there all of the time. And so you can continue to scan that. It includes all of the counties that run programs both live and online. 2 other programs that are coming up, though, that you may want to know about. The second fermentation program is on funky, not cabbage, but funky tea. That is, we will have a program like this one from 7 to 7:45 p.m. on April the 8th that addresses the subject of kombucha. And then the second part of essentially the canning basics, then the second program will address low acid canning, and that is for the pressure canning and for things like soups and meats and so on. We do not have specific registration links for those yet. So again, you can scan this QR code or bookmark that general events list, and those will appear. We just did a migration of the website literally in the past week, and so there's still some bugs being ironed out. If you have trouble finding things, just keep looking there. Or you can also find out lots more about what we're doing and get more different announcements and so on by signing up for our monthly newsletter, and that will come into your email box. You can like us on Facebook. We have new announcements, reels, tips, and so on showing up there all of the time. You can follow us on Instagram. Additional questions, if you don't want to wait until a program or until the first of the Wednesday of the month to come to a Q&A program, you can send questions in to our help desk, and there'll be a slower turnaround, but those will be researched and answers will be given back to you. You could also think about becoming a master food preserver yourself if you want to learn more about it and then share that knowledge with the public. Those programs run every spring, midst of the class of 2025 now. Finally, I just want to remind you that there is a post-event survey that's going to pop up in Zoom, and please help us out by completing it because it is important to us improving, and also our grant requires a collection of this kind of information. So we really appreciate your help in us continuing to do the work we do. Thank you so much for that. There are various references that will be in this slide deck that will be sent to you at the end if you are interested in pursuing more of this. And we can thank everyone for coming. I don't know if people may have a few minutes if they're burning questions left, but I know some people will need to be signing off. Thank you. Do we have the last of the Q&A? Yeah, I think we have.
I'm not sure what this asks about. Somebody asked, could you please post the event email once more? I'm not sure what they're asking for. If that person wants to unmute, maybe we can.
Perhaps the events slide we showed.
Yeah, it could be that. Let's see, I can bring it up on screen again, and the general QR code on the right is the same as
the
that
website. Okay.
for the website, and then the two separate programs. But you should be able to get to the Canning Basics one and the online Q&A program through that general event. You just have to scroll around and click the link that as you find it. Hope that is helpful. All right. Well, thank you so very much for your time and your interest in fermented foods. They're lots of fun, and they do all sorts of magical things on their own. And we look forward to seeing you at a later program. Maybe I want to move that on into kombucha. We've got a funky fermentation too coming up, and we would be delighted to see you. So send in your questions, join and follow us, and have fun preserving your food.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.